pleasant good afternoon and welcome one and all to the afternoon rush. My name is Randolph Critchlow and I want to say thank you very much for those persons who are joining us live and direct. The credible and valid information is about to come to you on the afternoon rush. We want to say thank you for joining us. Of course, a number of you have already joined us here, and as usual, we say thank you to those persons joining internationally in the region and right here in Guyana. Welcome to the afternoon rush, where we unpack the credible and valid information for every single Guyanese to hear, and those persons who are in the international community also. We want to ensure that all the information of what is happening here in Guyana gets through to you. We want to say welcome. We see persons joining here as we normally do. We take the first couple of minutes of the show to say that we're happy that you're joining, and we ask you that you share the live stream. Share the live stream to your friends and family. Let them know that the credible and valid information is about to be shared and unpacked right here on APNU AFC TV. Again, the afternoon rush is here. Welcome to those persons joining us. Miss Ray, Wharton, we want to say thanks. Just let us know where you're joining us from this afternoon, where you're getting the program from loud and clear, right? So let us go because we have a number of issues to unpack this afternoon. Welcome, Miss Roxanne Reed. Thank you very much for joining. Those joining us from New York, joining us from Antigua, Barbados. We see persons logging in from Jamaica. Persons logging in from Sunderland. Interesting. Not a bad place to be at this point in time. From Sunderland there in the UK, we want to say thank you very much and welcome to the show. Welcome to every single body logging in from the Caribbean. Thank you very much. Right here in Guyana. Share the live stream from Maryland, from Crane on the west coast of Demerara. Thank you very much for logging in. Georgia, New Jersey, welcome into the afternoon rush. Yours truly, Randolph Critchlow from St. Lucia. We know we have persons over there looking in St. Lucia for Virginia. Thank you very much for logging in this afternoon. Remember, share the link. Charlotte NYNC, sorry, from Charlotte. Thank you very much. Remember, share the live stream because we have some very interesting information to unpack today. It's going to be quite an interesting afternoon. I'm hoping to have MPD Vincius from Linden because a number of things went down in Linden. The Minister for Public Works, Mr. Juan Edgil, was in Linden. And there are so many issues, there's so many stories coming out of Linden as to what happened today in Linden with Mr. Juan Edgil. Reports have been flowing in about the various things that would have happened there in Linden. Of course, Mr. Edgil and the Prime Minister met with the nurses who are protesting, of course, the reinstatement of Mr. Rudy Small. I keep calling him Singh. But we're going to get to that. But like we always do, we start you off with the numbers. 378 days since this fraudulent administration was installed. Actually, 387 days since the March 2nd regional and general elections. And of course, the country still does not have credible elections. And we are going to be talking about elections today because earlier today, this afternoon, the leader of the opposition got a visit from the EU delegation, and they presented their final report on elections observation. So that report has been handed to the leader of the opposition, and we're going to talk more about that as we go down because, again, we want to remind persons that this fallacy being pushed by the PPP that somehow the APNU AFC was involved in trying to rig the elections when they know fully well that they were installed based on fraudulent numbers from the recount. So we're going to talk about that. Welcome again to those persons. Remember, share the live stream. Share the live stream. Don't be selfish with it, as my colleague Sher Duncan would say. The price of admission is that you share the stream and let your friends know what is up. Right. Ricard Butts, thank you very much. We always like to ensure that our viewers and our supporters have the credible and valid, up-to-date information. Right. The petition. We're going to be also talking about the petition. I'm going to try and get Mr. Roysdale Ford on the show tomorrow because, as you know, one petition has been appealed and that will come up in the appeals court soon. But April, the petition that was not thrown out by the High Court will start. That has to do with, of course, the Order 60 and the legality. That is pure law. Whether or not the Order 60 was valid and whether or not it created a new electoral regime like the CCJ said. So that argument, those arguments will start in April. I think it's the 15th, if I may stand corrected if that is not so. But that part of the petition, and I say that one aspect of the petition, or that petition will start. Then, of course, the other one which was thrown out on that technicality will be appealed in the appeals court. I don't know exactly the date, but the appeals are still alive and well, folks, and we will be hearing from the lawyers pretty soon. I would endeavor to get Mr. Ford on the show tomorrow so he can give you a further breakdown as to where we are with those petitions. Right. Again, 225 days since this fraudulent administration would have been installed, and we continue to see their confusion powder sprinkled all over the country. But we're going to unpack a lot of those things today that they have been doing over the last 24 hours. Folks, what happened today, of course, the nurses from Linden, they have kept up their voices, they've kept up their struggle, they've demanded that Mr. Rudy Small be removed, and they have not wavered on that. And quite interesting, we heard some very damning reports coming from the nurses about the conduct of Mr. Rudy Small, about the conduct of this man who is supposed to be the CEO. So let me just set this for you as we start to unpack what happened in Linden. The Prime Minister, Mr. Phillips, fraudulent Prime Minister, and I'm always reminded by our viewers that we ought to not forget that these people are fraudulently sitting in the seat of power and not to refer to them as anything but fraudulent. So the fraudulent Prime Minister, Mr. Mark Phillips, and the fraudulent Minister of Public Works, Mr. Juan Edgell, went up to Linden to meet with the nurses. The nurses were accompanied by Mr. MP Devin Sears, and he started by explaining that this man is in a position of influence, he's in a position of authority, and even though he would have offered an apology, and I put it in air quotes, an apology, that the nurses are still not accepting it, because it is not only what he said about the nurses and going and the lewd comments about this sweet man and all sort of madness, but his conduct. One nurse spoke about the fact that Mr. Small put a package together for nurses who performed well, and in order for you to get that package, you have to go to dinner with him. This is what is happening there in Linden. You have to go to dinner with Mr. Rudy Small, Mr. Oompa Loompa himself. So the nurses spoke of these things. The nurses also spoke about his inappropriate conduct towards them. And we're still trying to get the video. But there was an occasion when one particular nurse spoke about sexual advances and sexual misconduct on the part of Mr. Rudy Small. And Mr. Juan Edghill instructed the media not to report on that. And we are going to get the video. We're going to get the video to show you. We were working all day to get it. But he instructed the media to as if he is the judge at some sort of trial, to strike that from the record. This is what happened. The nurse spoke very openly. Let me get the exact information for you. Let me get the exact information, because this is very interesting what played out in Linden Deer. Mr. Juan Edghill, fraudulent Juan Edghill, right, instructed the media to turn off the cameras and not report on this. So the reports coming out from Linden folks is not very encouraging, right? The report said that a nurse spoke of sexual misconduct against Rudy Small, right? She spoke openly about it. And the fraudulent Juan Edghill instructed the media not to carry anything that was said by that particular nurse, trying, of course, to muzzle the media. This occurred during a meeting with the Prime Minister and the nurses at the Watuka House. This happened. We are going to get the video. The video will surface, guys. We are working and ensuring that we bring the video to you. But I'm giving you reports of people who were in the meeting. They were in the meeting. And Juan Edghill instructed them not to carry anything that that particular nurse said. And even if that wasn't, even if that was like beyond the pale, we were already past that mark of no return with Mr. Rudy Small. Because the video that I'm going to show you now was from the same meeting. One, I want you to notice how aggressive the fraudulent Juan Edghill was. Mr. Devin Sears said that the apology by Mr. Small cannot be accepted. Mr. Edghill jumped in and said, who determines whether it's accepted or not? The nurses said, we are not accepting it. Mr. Edghill was belligerent. I want you to listen. We had a nurse in the video that I will show you. One nurse saying that this man wanted you to go on dates with him. He wants you to go to dinner with him in order for you to get this special prize for performance. I don't know what sort of performance he is assessing. Folks, this is what happened. Let me see if I can cue up the video for you. And I want you to listen carefully.
Mr. Small, he holds a position of authority, and he also has a position of influence. Now, while an apology might have been given, it cannot be accepted. In this day and age, we have women who are fighting for
Who determines if it is accepted or not, Mr. Sayers?
No. The nurses who are affected by this situation. Right? And they're saying they're not accepting any apology. In this day and age, we hold a position of influence and power. You must be held accountable for what you say, your actions.
Mr. Rudy Small's statement is irresponsible, it's insensitive. And as a man, I will not agree with nothing that you mentioned.
Right. That voice you heard there was the voice of the Prime Minister saying that Mr. Small's comment was irresponsible. It was, insensitive. And as a man, he wouldn't accept it. Good on the Prime Minister. Good on the fraudulent Prime Minister for saying that. That he stands with the nurses in this sense that, Mr. Small. But the problem is that Mr. Small was reinstated by the minister. Let me continue in this video before we bring in Mr. Devin Sears. Let me continue. If you can listen to the nurses.
We should be aware that Rudy Small went on national television and proclaimed to the public that Linen Hospital Complex is 85% stocked with resources. That is not true. 3 weeks ago, I was on duty at the female ward and I got ill. I went into the room, I saw a doctor, I had a prescription, and everything on that prescription, normal saline, Ringer's lactate, ciprofloxacin tablets, Gravol tablets, Maxilon injection, Buscopan injection, everything. My relatives bought at a private pharmacy in Georgetown, brought to Linden for me. That same week, one of my colleagues from the ICU had an emergency surgery. All of our antibiotics, all of our iron medication, all of our fluids had to be purchased by our relatives.
Even though Small has made a package for nurses who perform well, and at the end of the month, we have to go to dinner and dine with him. Who told him I want to dine with him?
Right, folks. So that was one nurse explaining the unbelievable shortage of medication and supplies at the hospital. Right? And there's a next nurse, and this is where I'm going to pull back the video because I want you to hear what she said.
For nurses.
Right? So she's saying here that the nurses were supposed to be given a prize for performance. Listen.
Who perform well, and at the end of the month, we have to go to dinner and dine with him. Who told him I want to dine with him?
At the end of the month, these nurses who will perform will have to go and dine with Mr. Rudy Small.
I hear you, but I also want you to know that that is what we have to face with. Ours is a few minutes late because our brother was in an accident. And his remarks to her, he's never seen this nurse before. He's never had no interactions with her before. But his remarks to her is, why did nature give you my number? She frightened to take you away from your man.
That is Rudy Small. That is it. Nurses recounting their experience with him. Why this person didn't give you my number? You frightened, I take you away from your man. These are the kind of things the nurses have to go through. Folks, we are going to be joined right now by MP Devin Sears, who was there at that meeting. Quite an explosive meeting with many revelations. And you know, we get to hear from the nurses' own mouth what has been happening there with Mr. Rudy Small. Mr. Sears, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Randy. Randolph,
Hi.
how is everything?
Good. I know that you were a part of that meeting on the side of the nurses there. Give the viewers a sense of what played out, and you know, tell us what really happened at that meeting, and you know, this idea that the media was Mr. Edger was trying to muzzle the media we can get to, but what played out in that meeting?
All right, so the nurses have been protesting for over a couple of weeks now, right? With the mere fact that Rudy Small, who is the CEO of the Linden Hospital Complex, has been he made some very derogatory statements that upsetted the nurses, and it was very disrespectful. First of all, imagine we're celebrating women during the month of March, and somebody's talking about the nurses leaving their job to go and sleep with sweet man and then come back and sign in the time and all kind of nonsense. But it goes further than this. What was revealed yesterday, so when we did the protest and everything, what was revealed is that there are several allegations and several issues that were kept under wraps. One of it being is that Rudy has been sexually making sexual advancements to his staff, to the nurses. One of the nurses said specifically, and this is what Edgel basically did not want the news to carry, because he says that, you know, it's an allegation and it warrants investigation before it can go out there and yada, yada, yada. One of the nurses said that her daughter was the assistant to Rudy Small, right? Of which then he said to her that, you know what, we got to go out sometime and get to know each other, right? Outside of the office space. I can book a room for you and I can, we just need to talk. So she was like, you know what, if we need to talk, I eat lunch, you eat lunch, we can talk during our lunch break and so on if it's pertaining to business. But he seems as if he was looking for something more than just lunch. He was looking for dinner. So there are several other things that is playing out here. The nurses also mentioned about the shortage of basic medical supplies. And then it was also revealed that for some time he did some work at the Liliendal Health Center somewhere, and so on. He was transferred because of his sexual tendencies and so on. So it seems as if Rudy is after the nurses. He's in love with the nurses so much that he wants to probably be their sweet man, right? So at this point in time, what the nurses are saying that they've had enough. And from my perspective, I said to the ministers, the Prime Minister and also Minister Edgell, that as long as you hold a position of influence and authority, you have to pay the consequences for what comes out of your mouth. It was irresponsible of him and reprehensible. So at this time, we are not concerned about no apologies. Rudy must go.
We also heard one of the nurses recounting this situation where nurses are invited to dinner with with Mr. Small for the performance.
No, sometimes we disrespect women too much. Why would the nurses want to go out with him? Anything that needs to be addressed needs to be addressed in the office. There's no outer office arrangement that is happening. Our nurses in Linden have been working very, very hard under stressful conditions. And to know that the CEO can want to make advances to them, it's unacceptable. And I can tell you this, Randy, what is happening is that the nurses in Linden are being disrespected because of his wild and loose statements, right? When the nurses jump into a taxi to get to work, now the taxi drivers are making advances on them and saying, oh, you know what, I could be a sweet man. One of the nurses recounted she was going home with her daughter, and a man was walking behind her and saying, hey, I hear your CEO say that, oh, y'all like sweet man and y'all sting. I could be a sweet man too. Some real disrespectful things. Some nurses also recounted the fact that they're being abused physically at home, because if they go home now to the husband or the guy that they're living with and they hear a little outer thing and the clothes little twist, the males now are saying, oh, you went with your sweet man, right? So these are the things. There's some trickle-down effects that are happening with this entire situation that is causing great social concerns for our community. And if we are to allow Rudy Small to get away with what he has done, it will create a pathway for other things to happen, right? And we don't want a society like this. And Linden Region 10 will not have it. So we're full in support with our nurses.
Before we get to what came out of the meeting, I don't want us to diminish the seriousness of those allegations, whether it be going out with Rudy Small or the sexual advancement. And I was taken aback that the minister would attempt to muzzle the situation. How did the nurses take that when that particular nurse made that revelation?
Listen, you know what was appalling to me, right, is the language and choice of words that Minister Edgell used. The man basically said that he knows Rudy Small very well, right? Rudy and him, they are friends. Let's not mix it up. They are friends. And there are certain things that were said in that meeting. He basically instructed the media not to leak out, not to say, because it's either warrants an investigation or he's not in the presence to defend himself. I am sorry. right? But if an allegation is made of such a serious threat and concern, you know what these nurses are saying? They're saying, look, if an investigation had to be had, fine, but let Rudy Small go on administrative leave, and they're willing to go back to work, right? To me, the tone of Minister Edgell was unbecoming. He needed to be a little bit more sensitive to the fact that you're dealing with majority women. They don't feel safe around somebody. They cannot perform how they should. And while they're striking, the operations of the hospital continues, yes. But the sort of care that the patient should be getting, they're not getting. So Linden and Region 10 is suffering tremendously, right? So I don't agree with Minister Edgell's approach. I believe the Prime Minister was a little bit more, receptive of the nurses' concern. And he pledged that he will take it back to cabinet and so on to deal with the issue. But until Rudy Small leaves his office, only then can the nurses feel comfortable going back and working in that facility.
So that brings us to what was the outcome of this meeting? What was the word from the minister and Edgell as to the way forward?
There's no defined way forward. Basically what they said, look, we can go back to cabinet. I'm just talking in layman terms. We can go back to cabinet, raise the issue. We can talk to Dr. Anthony, Frank Anthony, minister responsible for health and so on. And then we can see where party goes from there. But they're trying to say basically to the nurses, look, stop what you're doing, stop protesting, and head back to work. And then this situation is going to be resolved. One of the nurses had to bring up that, look, we have tried this tactic before. When we were fighting for our risk allowance, we did go back to work. And to date, after 1 year, or less than 1 year, in a couple of months' time or so on, they did not receive their risk allowance. So we tried that method before, and we don't believe or have confidence in the government that this method will work again. So that is what is happening right now on the ground. You can't tell the people, look, go back to work, and they're feeling uncomfortable, they're not safe, they feel victimized, and all of these things. It just cannot work, Randy.
On a bigger note, though, I found it strange that the Minister of Public Health, the Minister of Health, was not there in any one of his advisors, because there's a bigger problem at hand. A nurse in that same meeting spoke of the shortage. We have Rudy Small and his craziness, but then it's not as if he's doing such a good job at the hospital, because we have all these shortages. So what is the Minister of Health saying and doing about this, other than than what he did in terms of reinstate Mr. Rudy Small? Any word from the minister at this point in time?
No, there's no word from the minister. The nurses and the GPSU have followed every single protocol that needed to be had. What they have done, they have written to the minister and also the board of the hospital. They have followed everything. They followed the label laws down to a T. But the Minister of Health did not have the audacity or the courtesy to even respond and say, look, I have received your correspondence and I'll respond at a later date. That's the least you could do. He did not even do that. To date, there's no representative from other than Edgell and Prime Minister Phillips that met with this group. There's absolutely no response or anything like that. With regards to the shortage of drugs, there's no one that came and say, all right, this is how we're going to assist or so on. So the nurses are fighting really a losing battle, especially in this COVID period. We heard about a patient that we had at Linden Hospital Complex. Even things like getting some food or some basic medical supplies, the nurses don't feel so safe. There was one nurse on her birthday that decided that, look, I'm going to take some MetMG and some soup for this patient and try my best, risking her life. But then who is there to look after that frontline worker? So there are several things that are happening, and all these nurses are asking for is this man to be removed so they can function properly, right? Ensure that the hospital gets its quota for drug supply so that it can better serve our community.
You know, it is quite interesting, Devin, because if we look at the trend, we see Kwame, who our female MP said they don't feel safe around him. No attempt is being made to remove him. We know about Berry slap and strip. We
Yeah.
now we see this man who is obviously being backed by the PPP and reinstated by the minister. So it speaks to the mentality of the PPP. It speaks to their lack of respect for women. It speaks of their lack of respect for the nurses generally. I don't know if I have any faith in the fact that they will do the right thing. But have the nurses said whether or not they will continue this action?
They will continue the action. I can assure you that they will continue the action, and it's going to get bigger and bigger. And we are encouraging all women across Guyana to join this fight. A disrespect to a nurse is a disrespect to the entire Guyana. And very, very soon, males within the region will join in this fight. We're going to go out there and protest because we love our nurse and we appreciate, right? In the healthcare sector. So we are going to continue fighting for them. And we are encouraging the entire Guyana to support these nurses, because just like what could happen in Linden or Region 10 could happen anywhere across the country. Today might be our day to face the heat, but tomorrow could be yours. And we as Guyanese need to stand up and support our women. This nonsense has to stop. Men in authority and or a position of influence have been abusing their powers. And we cannot allow Rudy Small to get away with this. It will open another realm of greater things to happen, of nonsense to happen when it comes to women and sexual assault and all sort of things.
David, I know about, I've been seeing some things about other things happening in Linden that I wouldn't get into. Alleged things happening in with the minister, but we won't get into that today. But what I want to ask you about, I know that you are the chairperson of the tourism committee there in Linden, and I wanted to ask you about what is planned, given, of course, we had this conversation before in terms of COVID, but I know that Linden Town Week would not be as usual. If you can give the viewers an idea of what will be happening in Linden as it relates to that event and any other thing surrounding tourism.
All right, well, Linden Town Week will be on this year. That's what I can tell you. The Region 10 Tourism Committee is going to be working in collaboration with the Linden Mayor and Town Council to ensure that some of the activities are executed. However, I must caution the public that major events like, we're accustomed to the all black, all white, and these physical contact parties, they will not be happening this year, right? Instead, we are going to be looking at smaller events. We're going to look at the virtual events. We have the spelling bee competition. We also have the Flyover Linden tour for those persons who are interested in seeing the beautiful Blue Lakes. We have well over 300 Blue Lakes within Region 10 alone. Right, so we're going to be having that. We have Corn House, very small events, controlled events. This is the first time we are going to be scaling down Linden Town Week to this less of a magnitude. But understand we're in a pandemic and we respect the COVID-19 guidelines. The COVID Task Force is working with the Region 10 Tourism Committee and the Linden Mayor and Town Council in guiding these activities, and all of it will be followed. There's one particular event that a lot of Lindeners are excited about. That is the drive-in karaoke. So that is going to be on as well. We have the Linden Heritage Day. So there are several activities, but everything is going to be in a controlled form. We're going to be having the Region 10 exhibition, but again, we are monitoring the amount of person that comes into the space at a time. You have to sanitize, you have to be screened, and all sorts of things. But when it comes to Linden Town Week, it's on this year. We're celebrating, I think, 51 years as a town on the 30th of April. So please ensure that you come give your support, explore Linden, but we want you to also be safe at the same time.
Very much for that, and of course we thank you for the update on what is happening in Linden there as it relates to that protest and the fact that the nurses will continue this action against the lewd and unprofessional Rudy Small. And these are very damning statements coming out of the nurses and revelations that we heard today, and I hope that it is not diminished and taken lightly, because too often we do this.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Well,
Thank you so
very
much.
much. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Take care.
Right, folks. There we had MP Devin Sears coming out of Linden, the region number 10, giving us an idea of what happened today in that meeting with the nurses. As you see here, the nurses meeting with Mr. Juan Edghill, fraudulent Juan Edghill, and the fraudulent Prime Minister, Mr. Mark Phillips, today in Linden there. Quite interesting revelations coming out of that. The nurses do not feel safe. They do not. They are maintaining that Mr. Small has to go, and things that we did not know before, we found out today. We found out that there's some special prize for the nurses, and in order to claim this prize, you got to go to dinner with Mr. Small. The same man that talking about nurses going to the sweet man and all sort of madness. The same man making sexual advances to the nurses has no respect or regard for those nurses in Linden, and you expect the nurses to go back into the office, their offices and then the wards and whatever, and just work as if everything is normal, right? A commitment there from the nurses coming via Mr. Sears, the MP from Linden, saying that they will not be doing that. It will not be business as usual if Mr. Rudy Small continues to be there. Again, speaking about the posture of the minister, the fraudulent minister Juan Edghill, speaking about this posture there in terms of how he presented himself in the meeting with the nurses, as if he knows this man very long and he is not going to impugn the man's character. The nurse spoke openly about the sexual advances made by Mr. Small. But of course, Mr. Juan Edghill said, no. I know this man, he's not here to defend himself. We can't entertain that. And that is where we are. That is where we are, folks. And the nurses, of course, have a right to continue their protest, continue their action for the removal. The nurses have also agreed to listen, send him on administrative leave until these things are investigated. Until these things are investigated. Note, we have not heard from the Minister of Health as yet. I say this because the nurse in the meeting spoke of the shortages of supplies and drugs at the hospital. Spoke about the misconduct of Rudy Small. Spoke about the sexual advances made by Rudy Small, the lewd comments made by Rudy Small. And the fact that the Linden Hospital Complex seems to be a place of bare chaos under Rudy Small, where the simplest of supplies you can't get. And not one word, not one single word from the minister responsible for health. Fraudulent be it, albeit the fraudulent minister, not one word. This is the same fraudulent administration, same people, same unconscious hypocrites who, if a pin drop in some health center somewhere in the region, they were ready to put Ms. Valda Lawrence on a cross, ready to hang her up. If a pin drop in a health center, I dare say that Ms. Valda Lawrence was doing a far better job than the three health ministers that they have right now. Berry, Frank, and the other one, spy laptop one. We can't hear a word from Frank. As I always said, Frank seems as if he's living in some alternate universe anyhow. Because he's willing to say that how they're doing this and they're doing that and doing that. And nobody can see what they're doing. We have people dying in the hospitals. You have drug shortage, not in the Linden Hospital alone, you know. All these health centers and other hospitals, people are complaining that you can't get drugs at it, you can't get simple supplies. But where's Frank? As one person is saying on the Ramsamy, thank you very much for the name. I'm so irritated right now, you remember the name. Ramsamy, Berry and Frank. 3 blind mice. 2 of them could put together and make one because 2 of them they could barely move about. Come back apparently for the government to pay the health bill. Just like how we got what's his name again? Luncheon at presidency. Wheelie in there for the government to pay health bill apparently. As apparently they get no other body in the PVP that could do anything. As my colleague used to say, these old tires. Roll back the old tires into government. 3 car tricksters. Oh, we're going to bring young people. Bring 1, 2, 3 young people, put them in the front face and then roll back the old tires into the administration. But I say this because they are unconscious hypocrites. That is what they are. We have confusion running rampant in the hospitals, but you can't hear a word from Frank. Let it have been Valda Lawrence that was the Minister of Public Health. You don't need to go far, you just need to compare the records. Compare the records. Fraudulent, unconscionable hypocrites. Alright. I just love the comments. I love the comments today. Folks, keep it going. Peter Samster, Randy, you're being frank about Frank. Yes. I'm being frank about Frank this afternoon. Frank needs a wake-up call. Somebody needs to touch Frank on his shoulder and say, listen, you have a job to do. He's sitting in the corner. That's what he is doing. Sitting in the corner. Imagine you are the Minister of Health. Your nurses are protesting in Linden. Weeks now. Not days. Weeks. All you did was reinstate the man that they're asking to go. You add some fuel to the fire and then you send Mark Phillips and Ed Gill up to Linden. Why? Because they're black. That's why. Or Mark Phillips is from Linden. The people in Linden don't even claim Mark Phillips. But you send these 2 stooges up to Linden. One, he's friends with the man. You say you know the man long. He's friends with Small, Ed Gill. So you go there for row on behalf of the man. And the other one is just a sailor. He ain't really know what's going on. He ain't really get any power anyway in the PVP. He's just there as a figurehead. He just sign things and cut ribbon. That's Mark Phillips' job. Sign things and cut ribbon. But you send the 2 of them. Where is Frank Anthony? You are the Minister of Health. These nurses are under your ministry. They're not under the Ministry of Public Works. I know why you send Ed Gill. They don't work at the Prime Minister office. Why you sending? You were supposed to be there. Why, is Frank afraid to go to Linden? Let us know. Huh? Frank gotta be afraid to go to Linden. Right? Folks, we're going to be switching gears this afternoon. Frank, if you're afraid to go to Linden, I'd like to come with you. Let it be known, Frank Anthony, I would accompany you to Linden so you can talk to the nurses. Just let us know what you want. Right? But we'll be switching gears this afternoon, folks. We have about 10 minutes to go on the program. You know, we're not going to go over time. But I want this afternoon, of course, as I will be doing in upcoming shows, to deal frontally and head on with this idea that has been posited and pushed by the PPP as somehow they were defenders of democracy and they're in power because of some democratic process that they managed to put right. Let it be known again, and I will remind those who are on the live just to go and report to the PPP. I will remind you that you are sitting in the seat of power based on fraudulent numbers gleaned from the recount. You cannot, that is irrefutable evidence. That's not something I pull out to the air. That is the fact. That is the fact. Folks,
Ford, MP.
Earlier today, the leader of the opposition received the final elections observation report from the EU delegation. Right? I have my own opinions on the ABCE countries and the role they played in installing the PPP government. My report that I depend on is a report that came from the CEO that says that the results cannot be deemed credible. And you cannot blame Mr. Lowenfield for saying in his official report that the election results cannot be deemed credible, because, as I keep saying, the mechanism to ensure credibility was tainted with, it was tampered with. If something is to be deemed credible, it has to first be verified. But how can we verify votes when the documents to verify them are missing? When there's clear evidence of persons who are out of the jurisdiction, they voted, or a vote was cast in their name. When there is clear evidence that persons who have gone to the great beyond, votes were cast in their name. So, I want it to be made very clear. This government that you see installed right now, they are not sitting there based on March 2nd results. They are sitting there based on recount results. Recount results that were proven to be not credible. Why were they not credible? Because simple fact that you cannot verify votes, it can't be deemed credible. If you have votes and ballots that came from dead persons, it can't be deemed credible. If you have votes and ballots that came from persons who are not in the jurisdiction, it cannot be deemed credible. So let's run away with this idea about March 2nd. March 2nd was overtaken by that unprecedented event in our country's history. What was that? It was the recount. Never before in our history we had an opportunity to open and audit the boxes. And I can speak on this because I spent those 33 days right outside of the recount speaking to persons coming out every single day, appalled at what they were seeing. GCOM staff embarrassed at what they were seeing when they opened those boxes. And like it or not, you could get vexed if you want to get vexed. You could be like the president, the fraudulent president, and say you need to recognize me as legitimate if you want to have talks. You can play those children game how much you want. Right? You can get vexed and screw up your face how much you want if you're a PPP supporter. The fact remains is that you are sitting in the seat of power based on fraudulent numbers. Everybody saw the fraudulent numbers. Right? When the 47 boxes from the East Coast that had not one single statutory document, when those numbers were counted, those were fraudulent. Those are illegitimate. Those were not credible. Can't verify, can't be credible. So, you could screw up your face. If you're on this live, you could screw up your face how much you want. Right? You could ask whatever question you want to ask on the live. And I'm seeing the comments. So, I'm happy that you're here. So that you can run and tell your political masters that, hear what Critchlow is saying. Critchlow is speaking the truth. You can't refute that. That will remain the fact that persons who are out of the jurisdiction voted. Persons who were not alive, vote was cast for them. They had persons with the certificate of identification that you had to take. Those hinterland regions. You have thousands of ballots that couldn't be verified. The fact remains that those are the numbers that you are sitting in government on. And when the history is written, you can try and rewrite history how much you want. You can jump on DPI and NCN and Channel 28 and Newsroom and try and reinvent what actually happened as much as you want. Revisionist history, they call it. It will not erase the fact that we went into the boxes and we saw the fraud. And this is why, and I will state this clear, this is why they have been fighting tooth and nail and trying all sort of dirty tricks so that the petition that speaks to those irregularities uncovered during the recount is thrown out. But they got another thing coming, They got another thing coming because that petition will be heard. I love the comments. Somebody said fraud is fraud. We have not forgotten that fraud is fraud. I love all of you who are on this live right now who are PPP supporters. I want you to hear. And go and talk in your little groups. Let them know that the history of what happened during the recount can't change. Right? Guyana wouldn't magically forget that there were 47 boxes with no statutory document from your stronghold. We wouldn't magically forget it. It is there. Yes. Yes, Sam, we're not blocking them. We want them to hear and take the news. Let them carry the news back. We want everybody to hear what the fact is. That those numbers, let me say this. Again, I repeat it. I said it yesterday, but I'll repeat it because it's important. When those irregularities were being unearthed at the recount. They were being uncovered as you open a box. You had this missing, that missing, poll book missing, list missing. The list that belonged to region 6 end up in a region 4 box. Then you had box with nothing in it, just ballots. 47 of those. That's not counting the boxes that had some missing. Hundreds of thousands of ballots affected. GCOM officials, commissioners said that they are going to, you know what they're going to do? They're going to put aside those votes that can't be verified. The next day, we heard Claudette Singh announce that, you know what? They are going to count those numbers that can't be verified also. That was the day that democracy died in this country. That was the great theft that happened. It was a theft of democracy. When Claudette Singh decided that, you know what, these five will be counted. Right? I want you to listen. And speaking directly to those PPP supporters on this live who are running with this idea that somehow the PPP are in there on actual credible numbers. Don't fool yourself. Don't fool yourself. There is no way to verify those numbers because there's nothing in the box. So you can run around, jump around like you're heading good right now. But the fact is that fraud is fraud. And that will be the legacy of the Irfan Ali administration. As much as they try to rewrite history, the facts are right in front of us. Guyanese will not forget the facts. And that will continue to be the legacy of the Irfan Ali fraudulent administration. That they are sitting or they sat in power, they were installed based on numbers that couldn't be verified. They were not credible, they were not valid. That is what it will be. And let us remember that. And I will remind you every single day. I will make it my duty to remind the PPP supporters who tune into our program so you know, they're dedicated viewers. So diligently every day they tune in. That your government is sitting there fraudulently. And you can't wipe out that legacy. Folks, I want to play you a little bit of what the leader said. See if we can get the volume up for you. But the leader of the opposition spoke immediately after.
Mr. Aubrey Norton, the executive director, and Mr. Imran Khan, who is our communications director. The point we made, first of all, had to do with the voters list and the fact that we had a bloated list that contributed to a large extent the issues which we face in these elections. And we asked that in the report itself that it be treated, give be some special treatment. In various parts of the report, they speak about the voters list, but what we wanted to do, we wanted to have a very clear and direct statement on the list of electors and the way in which that list should be cleansed. We have always held the view that the House registration was the best means of cleansing that list. There's going to be a roundtable discussion with the Electoral Observer Mission and several stakeholders on Monday. And at that point, I indicated to the head of the mission that we will have some more deeper and wider recommendations.
Right. So we had the leader of the opposition there receiving the final report, observation report from the EU delegation this afternoon. Folks, again, the legacy of the PPP will be fraudulently installed. I want to say thank you very much for those persons who joined me this afternoon. We have some more issues we want to unpack a little later down in the ring with Chair Duncan, but we're going to do that at 8 p.m. this afternoon. Thank you very much for those persons who've joined. Right. Nigel Singh, we love to have you here. We love that you're listening. You obviously find our program very interesting, that you take time out of your day, whether you're a troll or not, whether you're being, you're being sent to this program to write things, or you're doing it off your own. Thank you very much for being here. We love to have you, and keep supporting the program. Every time you click on this program and you watch it, we get one more view, and that is good for us, right? We love it. Again, to all of our friends on the live, thank you very much for your support. We continue to bring you the credible and valid information and to debunk the lies being told by the PPP. So Nigel and the others who are on the live, keep supporting us, keep clicking so we can get more likes. We love it. We just love to see those numbers go up on the viewership. So keep doing that. Do enjoy the rest of the evening. Remember, we always say to you, let's continue working together for national development. My name is Randolph Critchlow. And to those of you who were tuned today, please tune in tomorrow for our Friday program of Afternoon Rush. And don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere, because later on this evening we are going to be bringing to you In the Ring with Chair Duncan. Yes, let me just read some of the comments there. Right. Thank you very much. Yes, show Nigel some love, man. Show Nigel some love. All right. All of you, show Nigel some love. Show Nigel some love tonight. Let him know that you're happy that he's here. Woo! I love it. Guys, enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll see you tomorrow again. Right. Yes, Ms. Johnson, tell him to come back at 8 p.m. Good thing. Let him listen. Right. Do enjoy the rest of your evening. Do stay safe. Let's continue to work together for national development. My name is Randolph Critchlow. See you again tomorrow at 5:30.